Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Nicole with Bushel and Peck Designs. Okay, I'm so sorry in advance. This one's a long video. I messed up on this tumbler, or something happened to it, so I'm leaving it all in and showing you what happened and how I recovered from this tragic event. I am starting with a 30-ounce straight tumbler from the Tumbler Supply Store and this pretty heart, I think it's called Heart Sketch or Sketch Hearts. It is from 311 Co. I loved the pink and the black. I love pink and black together. So I'm just trimming it down. I want to leave a section on the bottom open. So I'm just going to do a traditional hinge method wrap on the top and apply that vinyl like that. You've seen me do it several times before, except this time I do remember to remove that painter's tape that is holding on the hinge method. I know you've seen me do it so many times where I forget, but I'm getting better and I remembered to remove it. So I just traditionally pull back that vinyl, trim a little of the backing off, and use my squeegee to press that down. Then to kind of camouflage that seam, I didn't want just a straight line, so I'm trying to trim around some of those hearts and the lines just to kind of blend it in a little bit more than just having a straight line and having a lot of the things cut in half. Next, I'm going to tape off that vinyl, not because we are painting, but because I'm going to be adding another type of vinyl, and I just wanted to make sure that I lined it up straight. And if I happen to not be straight, it wouldn't matter. There's no pattern on this holographic vinyl, but that way I could trim it off and make sure it's all lined up straight. I don't know why. I mean, I love the holographic, but lately for all of these this Mother's Day series, I've been really overly loving the holographic look. So my idea was, instead of painting it or glittering it, I would just apply this awesome holographic vinyl. I believe it is a TECKWRAP craft brand. I think it's silver holographic or something like that. I love this stuff. I use it all the time. So I just applied that. And then I'm going to take my very sharp X-Acto knife and just run it along that line where that painter's tape is to try and trim it off as straight as possible. When I applied this vinyl, I purposely left it longer on the bottom so that I could wrap it around that little lip there you see, and that way it would have a nice clean finished bottom. This is where problem number one started. I heated it, I folded it over, and then I trimmed it off on the circle. And then I went to epoxy the tumbler, and I don't know if I heated it too much and it wasn't very sticky anymore or what happened, but when the epoxy was curing, all of that edge lifted up, and I walked down that next morning and I was in a panic because it was not flat. So here is a picture. This is what it looked like, and I was just dumbfounded. I've never had that happen before. So I said, okay, we're gonna figure this out. I am taking my painter's tape, and you can see there's a little line right there on that tumbler. I'm just going to line up my painter's tape with that. Then I'm going to take my very hot heat gun, heat it, and cut it away with my X-Acto knife. It worked perfectly because there wasn't a ton of epoxy. It wasn't a very thick layer. I already knew that I was going to be adding several layers in this entire process of this tumbler, so I did not make it a very thick layer. So heating that epoxy and using a very brand new sharp X-Acto knife, and it cut through it perfectly. So problem averted, and we'll move on. I'm telling y'all, this tumbler almost broke my heart a million times with how many issues I had, but I'm so glad that I kept going because I absolutely love the way this came out. And I just wanted to leave it all in to show you that sometimes crap happens and you just have to work through it, and sometimes it just turns out okay in the end. But I just thought that it would be funny to share all of my mishaps on this one singular tumbler for this video. Once I had that off, since I already had it taped off, I decided I would just go ahead and give the bottom a little bit of glitter. So I am painting it with ColourPop's Cotton Candy, and I gave that 2 coats of epoxy. And then because I wanted to move on quickly to the next step, I am just going to go ahead and cover the bottom with UV resin. And then I am using Sugar Rush from Diamonds and Dust. It's a very soft baby pink, which I wanted to bring down that element from the pink in the vinyl. So I applied that UV resin, I applied that glitter, and then I'm going to remove the painter's tape, and then I am just going to let it sit under my UV light for a few minutes. I think it was cloudy this day, so I couldn't stick it outside. And then we are going to move on. What I thought would be a fun element to bring from that holographic vinyl is add some hearts all over the top of this vinyl, just to kind of tie it all in together. And also I put some bigger ones on that seam area to just help hide that a little bit more as well. And I did different sizes. I did some tiny hearts, I did some medium hearts, and a little bit bigger hearts. And I'm just going to have some hang off the very top edge and some hang off the bottom edge, so it looks like it all goes together. You know, I love to not just leave items floating, so if you have it hang off the top or the bottom, it looks like a continual flow of elements. After that, I wanted to bring in a little bit more of something to that holographic vinyl section. So I just cut a strip of heart outlines, and I'm just going to apply them in a straight row right in the middle of that holographic vinyl section. And all I did was measure the width around the tumbler after I had this layer of epoxy on, and that way I could get a good measurement to make sure I didn't have any that were left with too big of a space. So I'm just going to apply those. Now we are going to work on this super fun element that is going on the tumbler. It is a heart charm, and it is from CAMIPAIGE Boutique. And it's also, you can use it like a snow globe. I saw this and I instantly knew I had to have this. I didn't have a game plan when I ordered it, but I knew I wanted to do something in this series with this charm, heart charm. So I ordered the heart charm for a 30-ounce straight tumbler, and then I am taking the bottom element of the snow globe portion, and I'm going to wrap it in that same vinyl. But then we're going to use, because the backside is kind of holographic as well, I'm actually going to be using that side because most of it's going to be covered up, and I didn't know if the snow globe solution would do anything to this vinyl, so I didn't want to take any chances. So I'm just trimming this off, and then we're going to put the snow globe charm together. After I applied the vinyl to that side of the heart, I'm going to remove the other side's backing, and I'm just making sure it looks good in there, and then I'm going to take it out and we're going to put it together. So what it comes with is a bottom piece, and then basically like an outline spacer piece, and then a top piece. So I'm going to take off the edge or the backing on the spacer piece, and we're going to attach that to the bottom piece and then attach the top piece to that. So here I am taking off the backing, and then I'm just going to put it together with UV resin. So I squirted a little bit of UV resin on a piece of paper, and I'm just going to use a silicone brush and dab it onto the spacer piece, apply that to the backer piece, and then heat that with my heat gun, or not my heat gun, my UV lamp. I'm just going to let it sit for a few minutes under the UV lamp to make sure that it's nice and cured. And then once we have that together, we're going to add the glitter before we attach the top piece. We are going to use Heartbreaker and Waterfalls from Diamonds and Dust, and then I'm also going to use Fabulous from Sandy's Organized Chaos. The Heartbreaker was perfect. It's shades of pink and it has little tiny hearts in it, so I of course had to use this one. And I don't want to overflow this shaker. It's not a very big space in there, so I'm just taking a minute part of these little spoon scoops and just adding a little bit of each one. I wanted the chunky and the fine glitter in there, so that's why the Heartbreaker one was a perfect combination with these other chunky ones as well. And then same thing, I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit of the UV resin, place it all over that spacer piece, and then attach the top, and then I'm going to let it sit under the UV light for a few minutes so that it's nice and cured. Now that the shaker portion is all put together, I'm going to add the liquid. I thought about just leaving it just glitter, but I had to take it to the next level and make it an actual snow globe shaker. I had just enough, or just a little bit more than enough of this glitter solution, not glitter solution, snow globe solution from CAMIPAIGE Boutique. It is middle of the road, so it's not a fast flow and it's not a super slow flow, so it was perfect for this. Here I am making a hot mess of everything. Some of the glitter was stuck right there in that opening, but I didn't have a needle-nosed syringe or anything, so I'm just doing the best that I can to make sure that that liquid gets in this shaker. I just took it slow, added a little bit at a time. We do want to leave a little bit of a bubble in this so that it has room to move around and flow. Now what you'll see is once I'm happy with that fill, on the edge or on the tip of these needle nose tweezers, I have just a clear strip of packing tape. I cut it so it was no wider than the width of this shaker. And then I'm going to seal up the edges with a little bit more UV resin just to help hold all of that, to get all the tape on there to hold all of that solution in the shaker. After that, I'm going to put the shaker back together. I didn't worry about gluing it in. It was a pretty snug fit, and I knew that it was going to get a full coat of epoxy over it, so it would be secure anyways. I'm just using a little bit of super glue to attach that to the tumbler, and I'm just going to hold it in place to secure and let that dry so it was not going to go anywhere. And then here you can see I'm going to shake it up a little bit so you can see that move inside the heart. I think it's just such a fun little surprise element to have that on your tumbler. And then I'm going to add a black vinyl stripe. I only had some like short stripes, so it doesn't go all the way around, but I had a few, so I'm just going to layer them to make them go around the full length of the tumbler. You'll realize here in a few minutes that this is not what the end result ended up looking like, because this, here in a minute, is where we had the huge tragic accident with this tumbler, and I will explain to you in a second what happened. But what I did originally was add a thick black stripe on the top and the bottom, and then I added a pink stripe and then a silver holographic stripe in the center of that. But it all ended up coming off. I had a few little of the holographic hearts left, so I decided to add that to the front of the snow globe heart just for an added touch of something extra. So then after that, I put it on my turner and I epoxied the whole thing, let it sit for overnight. When I came down the next morning, it had fallen off my turner and landed on the rug. Well, it's like a yoga mat that I keep underneath my turners where I stand, and it was stuck to it. So I had to rip it up, and I was heartbroken. I was so upset. I didn't know what I was going to do. I set it aside. I may have shed a few little tears, maybe said not some so nice words because I was quite upset, but I knew that I had to make this work. It was the only heart charm that I had. It was the only piece of vinyl that I had in that hearts. So I knew that I had to fix this, and that is why I wanted to share and leave this in to show you that it turned out okay. So if you ever have something like this happen, hopefully this might help you. I have not had cups fall off my turner in a very long time. I think some of my inserts are getting a little worn, and also this is a little bit heavier, and it's a little like not top heavy, but when it spins, it had like the weight wasn't even. So I think it just a combination of the both, and it fell off. So I am taking my really hot heat gun, and I'm literally doing the same thing that I did earlier when that bottom portion was messed up, and I am just scraping off vinyl or scraping off epoxy and all of that green yoga mat and epoxy. I'm just scratching it off. I didn't want to just sand it because I didn't want to leave the elements of that mat in there. I wanted to get it off before we sanded it. So all of the striping at the bottom peeled up once I heated it. Some of the hearts peeled up, and then I just don't want to be able to see any of that green portion. Where I peeled it all off of the heart charm, I'm then just going to take my Posca black paint marker and fill in all of that. You can see it's really rough here, but again, once we add epoxy, it won't look rough at all. So I'm just going to touch all of that up and then give it a really good sand in all of that section that had that yoga mat stuck to it. And some of those hearts did peel up, and that's okay. We're going to fix that. So I gave it a really good sand on the whole tumbler, but especially focusing on that area. Thankfully, it was cured enough that the epoxy didn't like drip, but it just stuck to the mat. So after that, I put it on the turner and made sure it was nice and secure and gave it a coat of epoxy. And then in case there was any elements that you could see, I decided to add some of this chunky glitter mix from my dump glitter collection. I do have those available on my website. And I thought that just sprinkling it over the heart vinyl would just give it a little bit more texture and help hide any blemishes and flaws that may still be there. And I went in also with a little bit of waterfalls because I love that chunky glitter. It's such a light color shift, but it really adds so much to the design. After that was cured, I went ahead and just had another stripe cut of these heart outlines, and I'm going to place them over the ones that were still there. And then in the two open spots, I'm just going to place two more. That way all of them were on the same layer of epoxy. After that, I'm going to go in with a new striping configuration for it. I decided to do a little bit thinner of a black stripe, and then in the center of that, I gave it a silver holographic stripe, and then on the inside portion of each stripe, I gave it another black line just to add a little bit more. And then after that, to cover up where we scratched that vinyl when we did the sanding and the peeling, there was a little spot where I nicked the vinyl itself. So I'm just going to go back in and add a few more of those holographic hearts to just disguise that. And I added a few extra just so that those were on the same layer of epoxy as well. And then after that, I gave it 2 final coats of epoxy, and this beauty was finally all done. I may have doubted myself several times while doing this one and wondering if it was really going to be worth it and if I was even going to be able to save it to make it look like it didn't have so many issues. And I'm happy to say I am so glad that I kept going because it is beautiful. Look at those holographic hearts and the snow globe heart. I absolutely love this. You can find so many fun charms like this on CAMIPAIGE Boutique's website. I do have a discount code for you down in the description box, so if you order anything, make sure you check that out and use that because we all love to save a little bit of money. But I thank you all so much for being here. I had so much fun working on this series. My next series will be the Dad Inspired series next month, so make sure you subscribe and get notifications checking the bell mark so that you will be notified when I do upload. Until then, as usual, I hope that I have inspired you, and I will leave all of the information where to find me and the products that I used down in the description box. I'll see y'all next week. Bye y'all, and happy Mother's Day to all of you moms out there.